So now let's work on our bottom housing. I'm going to hide the top housing for a second here, just so that that's completely out of our way. And then I'll also hide our ID master model, and I want to hide even the circuit board because I think that is also getting in our way visually here in the context of our assembly. And now we can just see the battery door and what will be our bottom housing. And so let's actually edit the bottom housing. So we can still see that battery door kind of grayed out there in the background. And the first step will be to edit, once again, that ID master model import feature. Let's edit that feature and, again, bring in the unabsorbed sketches and hit OK. And when we do that, we are going to need to, once again, expand this out. Let's hide those button sketches because really, again, all we need for the moment is this battery door sketch. I'm going to show that. And then we can start to work with this thing and start to build the final housing. But this one we're going to do in a slightly different way. We used entirely solid modeling techniques to model this battery door, but we're going to use some surface modeling techniques to create the housing because we need this interior surface for the battery door to sit on. I'm going to show you what I mean in just a second. So let's go to our Surfaces tab. I'm going to click Offset Surface. I'm not going to click out here in the viewport. Instead, I'm going to come to my tree, find the surface body that I want to offset, which is this from the ID master model, this exterior surface. I'm going to flip the direction of the offset, and I want to offset by, we did a 2 millimeter wall thickness on that battery door, I think. So I'm going to do 2.5 millimeters. So I get 2 millimeters plus a little bit of clearance there. So it's just inside the battery door, and hit OK. Next, I'm going to go to my Extrude Surface command. That's one we haven't used yet in this course. I'm going to select the battery door curve. I'll set my direction to mid-plane, and then just expand that out so that it's plenty bigger than our object. Okay? Close that up. And right now, there's a lot of stuff on my screen. It's a little hard to see what's going on. So just for a moment, while we create this feature, let's right-click and open this guy up in a brand new window. So we're just looking at this one part. And then I'm going to shift-click on the 3 surfaces I want to look at, right-click, and say Isolate. That's going to hide everything except for the selected surfaces so that we have a nice, clean viewport to look at. And I'll hide that sketch as well. So we're just looking at our 3 surfaces. Then I'll run my Trim Surface command. Under trim type, it's going to be a mutual trim. We're going to trim all 3 of these objects. And then down below, I'm going to click the next box, and instead of keep selections, I'm going to remove selections in this case because it's a little hard to get to some of the interior ones here. And what I want to do is remove this interior surface there. I'll remove this inside of the conic surface and the outside of it as well. I just want the kind of in-between bit. And then I'll remove the bottom piece of my exterior surface. Hit OK. And what we're left with should be just a cutaway version of that surface, right? You see that? So we're just left with this part of our extrude, this part of our offset, and this part of that original surface. Okay? Now from there, we can, when we entered isolate mode, we got this little window. We can click Exit Isolate, and it should bring back everything else in our file. In this case, it looks like it. In this case, we've got a little visual bug here, but they'll come back. It's okay. We'll just close this up, hit Yes, and we can see that our battery door now fits perfectly, exactly where it's supposed to be in with our housing. So once again, we'll do the exact same process we used to create the battery door to make this guy into a solid. So we'll go to the top plane of that part, the bottom housing part. I'll create a center rectangle, once again, that's just larger than our part. It doesn't really matter how big it is. And then I'll do, under Features, an Extruded Boss. And instead of Blind, we'll go up to Surface and choose that trimmed surface we just created. Hit OK. And I'm left with a solid chunk of material ready to work with. Now, one thing to notice here, actually, is that when I did that, it went ahead and merged that geometry with the ribs and bosses that I'd already created. I just forgot that those were there. So let's make sure that when we run the boss extrude, we actually want to make sure we do not merge result, because we don't want to merge with all of our ribs and bosses. We're not done with those yet. Next, we want to hollow this out. So I'll go to my features, shell this guy. We'll give it, once again, a 2 millimeter wall thickness. That should be fine. Hit OK. And if we're lucky, it's going to shell everything out. And now we're ready to start adding those ribs and bosses.